Hi, I'm Nikhil, and welcome to the Daily Practice, the podcast where small, consistent practices change the shape of your life. Today, we are digging into a deceptively small idea that makes absolutely massive difference in our lives. It's called the 5% rule. Imagining life as a garden. Most of us spend our time tending the same plot, watering the same plants. But what if the real growth, the wild flowers, the trees that shades you 10 years from now, only sprouts when you step just a little bit beyond the fence? Not a leap of faith, leap of a cliff, not a life overall, but just 5%. Now, if you're listening and you want to change that actually sticks without burning you out, stay with me. I'll explain what this 5% is, why it works without the woo woo, how to do it step by step, and you'll also get a little guided micro practice to pick your own 5% act for today. And if this episode helps you even a little, hit like, share it with someone who needs a gentle nudge and can keep coming back to this practice together. Now, big transformations are sexy. We love before and after photos. Dramatic, fast, shiny. But human beings, nervous systems, habits, social roles rarely like drama. They resist it. The 5% rule says choose a daily action that is only a bit beyond your current edge. About 5% more than what you usually do. Tiny friction, huge compounding. Now, I might have heard of this in other areas. So, let me give you a quick picture. A mildly anxious man, let's call him Tom. For 10 years, Tom avoided speaking up in meetings. One day, he decided to say one short sentence in a meeting. Nothing rehearsed, just one sentence to share an idea. 5%. It felt enormous at the time. He did it once, then again, and 3 months later, people asked for more of his opinion. A year later, he started to lead meetings. So, a single micro step rewired how he saw himself. And that's the heart of this practice. So, what this is and what is it not? This is about incremental acts. It's not about massive risks or reckless courage. It's not about a polished performance. And success is optional. It's not a hack for instant fame. It is a predictable, manageable way to expand your capability and identity, a method to rewire your nervous system for small doses of discomfort, a daily habit that compounds into confidence. So, why is it 5% and not 1% or 10% or 20%? Because it is small enough that fear won't overwhelm you, and big enough to nudge your identity. And one sentence in a meeting, one uncomfortable conversation that lasts, say, 2 minutes, one extra repetition for you gym goers. Those are the 5% moves. Done repeatedly over and over, they accumulate into your new baseline. So the idea is not a spiritual one, actually. The 5% idea is borrowed from established approaches, tiny step change, Kaizen, exposure, work in psychology, and the idea of micro habits It borrows from coaching methods that change identity through repeated action. The body and the brain as one, learning by doing. And what used to be I can't becomes I sometimes do. Repeating that small step shifts how you describe yourself. So let's be practical about the mechanics. When you do something slightly outside your quote unquote comfort zone, you expose the nervous system to tolerable stress. The stress isn't trauma, it's information. Your body learns. That wasn't too bad. You build evidence. The tiny win is proof that you can handle slightly more. Evidence beats intention every time. An identity shifts slowly. Repeated small actions create a new story for you. I'm someone who speaks up. I'm someone who finishes things. And then momentum accumulates. Small actions lower the perceived energy barrier for the next action. And these changes are added and cumulatively and become durable because they're anchored in your experience and not in just hope. So let me share you a few stories from my own work. So from coaching people. So one of my clients, she always wanted to ask for flexible hours but feared judgment. And her 5% step was to email her manager asking for 1 day a week remote trial for a month. And the manager said yes. She kept it, learned to set boundaries, and eventually redesigned the week. Another client of mine, who's a teacher, retired teacher actually, she felt invisible socially. She's done all this work throughout her life, and now that she's retired, she doesn't know what to do. And she signed up for one local book discussion and spoke for 60 seconds. It was very shaky, it was difficult because it's not in a familiar setting of a school, but felt shaky. And then it was curious. And after a few months, they were co-facilitating community circles, which she once avoided. Then there is one of my fitness clients who unfortunately hated gyms. And his 5% was 5 minutes of movement. 5 minutes of movement every morning. Not an hour, not 20 minutes, not 10 minutes, just 5. It is the time when the tea is brewing. So 5 minutes became something when he could do when he woke up and just was waiting around for the tea to brew. And it slowly, over weeks, couple of weeks, it took him to do these sessions, do these exercises, 3 exercises for 5 minutes. Then something shifted. Then it became slowly 10 minutes. And a couple of months later, he signed up for a 5K run. So he did not go to the gym, but yet he understood that daily, small, 5% actions has dramatic impact. And another client of mine who was a founder, and she was stuck in something called analysis paralysis. So it was overanalyzing every single detail and trying to get the right We all done this, right answer before taking an action and before getting a feedback. So we encouraged a new approach where she would get feedback from one person who's an industry expert every week and have an open and honest discussion with them to understand what the product should be. And that kind of helped and shaped the product, and now the, the now she is successful in selling that product. So each of these stories shaped the way this practice can change lives literally. So tiny action, feedback, shift, scale. So how does this work in practice? So step 1, let's map your comfort zone. What's something you normally avoid but would matter if you could do it? And be specific. It's like, I don't do this thing in front of these people, or I don't challenge my boss, or I don't take part in certain events. Is much more useful than say, I want to be confident, I want to be successful, etc. So map your comfort zone. Where are the comfort zones? Where are things when it gets slightly difficult, you start to check yourself. That's where your comfort zone lies. Now this can be in different aspects of your life. So it can be in your relationships, it can be in your family life, it can be your business, it can be your hobbies, your activities, wherever. But yeah, step 1 is to map that comfort zone. Just notice the comfort zone. Then define your 5% precisely. So this is where it's fascinating and interesting, because you create your own goal, not copying someone else's or something you've seen elsewhere. This is exactly where you can get playful and joyful and really curious about your current behavior. If you never speak, 5% might be one sentence. If you typically say nothing for a whole meeting, saying one brief point is huge. If you exercise 10 minutes, 5% means maybe one more minute, or one more extra repetition, or one more exercise. So what is that 5% for you? Try to get really precise. And step 3, prep a tiny script or plan. If it's a conversation, maybe the sentence, you can draft it. You don't have to come up with it. And people often have this idea, oh, I should be able to just react to any situation in the moment and I will be able to manage it. Absolutely not the truth. All people, especially successful people in our eyes, have scripts, have plans. They have rehearsed them so well that it comes out as it's natural, but none of them are just going off the cuff. They have understood what is required and what they might get challenged on, and they rehearsed it. They just didn't go off the cuff. You can go off the cuff, but that's another step if you're to build a confidence in being resilient and being ready for anything. Yes, that is something you can do. But if you are doing something specific, something like you are challenging or you are changing some things, it is important to prep a little bit. It is important to at least have an idea of what it is that you will do if this happens. So I'll give you an example. So if your goal is, or not goal, if your 5% is to challenge or speak up in certain settings, especially in a meeting, for example, then come up with questions that may be asked of you or in the meeting, and then finding answers for it, and then just rehearsing it in your head, imagining them, visualizing it in that space, and how you will go about it. And then step 4 is to pair the act with an anchor. So anchor it to a habit you already do. Before your morning coffee, say your one sentence out loud. If it's to build confidence, say it out loud when you are doing something else which you have habituated. Especially even your morning routines, when you wake up and brush your teeth, that is an ideal opportunity. People often think negative thoughts when they're brushing the teeth, and this is very, very interesting, because when people brush their teeth, they're often thinking, oh, what I have to do, what should I what should have I done, I should have done this, I should have done that. It's just a habit. That is an ideal moment to rewrite your script. That is a moment of creating a growth mindset. That's a moment for creating abundance mindset. That's an ideal opportunity for you to start to practice mindfulness. Because often you're so grounded when you are brushing your teeth, because you are there, you're looking at yourself, you are completely aware of what is happening, but then you distract yourself with thoughts and other things because you're so aware. That's why I think we tend to focus on something else, because we are so aware. So using that place, using that time, anchoring it to that habit, a habit that you already do. Step 5, do it and notice what you feel right away after you've done the act. So for example, you challenged your boss. What happened? How did your body respond? And one concrete thing you learned. So I'll give you an example with myself. I challenged my manager the other day, saying that there needs to change something. What happened was I got rejected, as in that's not the right idea. They decided to go by whatever the manager wanted. And I felt like my whole identity was crushed. And that was a moment for, again, practicing this 5%. I challenged again, saying this is how it should be. It is something which was important for our day-to-day operations, that we need to make clear to the people what our priorities are. And again, that was dismissed again. And what I learned was I was able to challenge, but I felt bad. But then I came back with concrete idea. Again, that was ignored. But one thing I took away, one thing I learned was, if I hadn't done that, I would have felt even worse. I would have carried it with me. Now, at least I know where I stand and where they stand. And next time, I can make an informed choice on what I need to do. So, feeling it right away, noticing feeling is so important, and we often misassociate what the feeling is. The feeling may be a sense of anxiety. It is about anxiety, but in actual fact, it might be just excitement, because we don't really associate the exact feelings always. And step 6, if you find a win, micro win, then talk about it, write it down. I did that. Be proud. Be proud. Be proud of what you have achieved. And that is exactly what this idea of 5% is. So the 5% is is choose a daily action that is only a bit beyond your current edge, about 5%. And that's the idea. So if you want to change something, do something which is about 5%, not 100% change. So for example, 100% change would be something you do dramatically different from day in, where there is a complete change in your perception, in your identity. Micro habits, mini habits, all of that are helping you to develop the 5%. So 5% is specifically on a behavior, on an act. So using micro habits, using mini wins, you start to change. And that is the idea. And step 7, repeat and widen the edge slightly. So you start to move and broaden. And then we've heard this term compounding, and that actually starts to happen when we start to make consistent number of these 5% changes. And that's where I think we start to see major shifts. So let us do a micro practice. You can do this now wherever you are. If you're in the car, please park the car. At your desk, on a walk. But right now, breathe with me for a moment. Close your eyes if that is convenient. Take 2 slow, deep breaths. Inhale, hold for 1, exhale. Good. Picture one small thing that you've avoided this week. Maybe it's speaking up, sending a message, asking for help, or trying something new. Name it silently. Now imagine the smallest action that is a smidge beyond what you usually do. 1 sentence, 1 question, 1 minute. See it clearly. And if you have it, you can speak the sentence out loud now, even if it's just you. If it's an email you want to send, say the subject line out loud. If it's a movement, set a timer for 2 minutes and commit. So, allowing yourself this opportunity to get that specific sentence out. Good. Now, imagine doing that tiny thing successfully. Feeling the small relief, the release, the slight lift in your chest. Noticing the reality of it, not the fantasy, but what actually could happen. And once happened, what do you feel like? Hold that for a moment. And now, commit to doing that small action sometime today, not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow, not when the sky is blue, right now. Maybe writing it in your phone. Do this thing at this time. And that's it. Your brave act today is chosen. And if it is something you do it right now, if you did it quietly, powerfully, say to yourself, yeah, I did that. And you've moved your baseline. Well done. And of course, fear shows up, and other things apart from just always working out. A lot of things will be there to stop you from doing this. Of course, there is perfectionism because we often want to be in a perfect moment. So, countering it with micro sufficiency, just being sufficient, this is it. It's enough from here. We have enough information right now to do it. Is this sufficient to learn from? Yes. Move on. All or nothing thinking happens. If your brain says, oh, if I can't do this big thing, why bother? And reminding that compounding tiny wins is a strategy, is something you are practicing, is not laziness. And sometimes you'll stop for days. We do. That's normal. And return without judgment and pick up from where you left off. There's no shame in relapsing in that sense, because you've already made the progress, and when you stop making the progress, you're not going back to the baseline, you're going back to where you left off. There's a social anxiety risk, so use written micro steps first, short message, then move to the voice, or to ease the social exposure. An identity friction always happens when we do these kind of things. It's old identity fights the new behavior. So keep a log of wins, evidence beats identity anxiety all the time. So evidence, bring more and more evidence, and reminding yourself of these evidence can help you in that changing phase. So let me tell you a story about one of my other clients. I'll call him Daniel. Daniel was in his 50s, is in his 50s, sorry. Has built a successful career, but was always told, and he knew that he couldn't speak publicly. He'd been invited to give 5-minute talk in his all hands for his company, and it was panic. And his 5% plan. First, I asked him to record himself for 30 seconds. And then I asked him to come up with all the things in his head which are stopping him from performing or providing this presentation. And then find the answers, and not just find the answers, repeat it and record it. So he had to do all these several recordings of the challenges he might face, and then his own perspective on it. And then he practiced 60-second introduction in front of his family, who he could be safe with. Some people find family a bit safe, some people don't find it. So find your people who will listen to you, and then practice it if there is something you want to do. But yeah, for his case, family was great. So he practiced this 60-second introduction in front of his partner. And then slowly he started to notice, okay, I am getting more and more comfortable, more and more at ease. I wouldn't say comfortable, because when we listen to ourselves, there are many, many feelings that come up. So we often do not see ourselves as other people see ourselves. So there is this disconnect. So we have to work through that. And then over time, couple of more practice sessions, and he felt comfortable. And then he did the stage work. And yes, there were nerves, there were things which were in the moment, but we practiced some mindful breathing exercises which could calm himself just before the practice, before the presentation, and it worked. So the idea was, it was a small step of just recording 30 seconds and then 60 seconds and then challenging his own narratives. So, one small consistent nudge reattached a lost part of himself. So, to sum up, the courage is not always big. Real change often means inching forward 5% at a time. And this is practical, sustainable, and profoundly humane. We rewire ourselves, build evidence for our new identity, and gets us closer to the life we want without the drama. So thank you for sharing the time with me. I loved exploring this practice with you. And if you tried today's micro step, tell me how it went. I read as many messages as I can, and I'll share a few on the next episode. So, next time on Daily Practice, we'll explore something more interesting in terms of conversation with ourselves. A practice that will help you talk to your wiser self in a way that changes decisions today. So, small acts, big impact. Until next time, be a little braver than yesterday. And thank you for being here. Take it easy.